The fourth and 40 show making its debut. Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, the man behind the glass, Chris Galler, making things work. It's our football preview show starting today. And after our preview shows, it's going to be nothing but football. We'll get into, team talk. We'll see how each division is doing, give, picks for the week, stuff like that. But today we are going to tackle the AFC, the entire AFC. Coach, are you ready for some AFC action here?
I am ready for the AFC least, and let's get it on.
Probably the not so sexy pick, the AFC least or the AFC East for everybody out there. We're gonna jump into that real quick. Hey, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, you've got a team that lost in the wild card game last year. I believe they finished 10-6. Key players coming back. I mean, you got Josh Allen, Devin Singletary. The defense is a monster defense. Ed Oliver, Tremaine Edmonds, Tre'Davious White, to name a few. They did have some good additions. They had some key additions in there. Stephon Diggs being traded from Minnesota. They added a couple of nice rookies in Zach Moss and AJ Epineza. You've also got Vernon Butler, Mario Addison, Josh Norman. That defense did get a lot better, and it was already good to begin with. Out of those guys, who do you think's going to be that big addition for Buffalo?
Well, it should be Stephon Diggs, and it probably will be Stephon Diggs, Rudy. I mean, he's coming from Minnesota, given the opportunity to be kind of that straight number one guy. Because the Bills last year, Rudy, they just had a bunch of clogs in the system, right? But Stephon Diggs it is a true number one guy. You saw him last year or the past few years with Adam Thielen. Allen needs to take that next step. That next step involves kind of opening up that offense a little bit more. I know he loves to run as a quarterback, and that's great, Rudy. But we've seen running quarterbacks and that life expectancy go a bit down. So I would love to see Allen kind of mature in this offense, give him a little bit more, and open up that playbook. But I think Stephon Diggs is going to be crucial this season because you don't want Allen to regress, because this could be a situation like Mark Sanchez, right? He plays well for a few years, right? And then butt fumble, and he literally just disappears into NFL Siberia. So
I hear you on that.
Crucial year for Allen, and Stephon Diggs can really help this football
team. And actually, Allen is our player to watch on the Buffalo Bills this season. I totally agree with you. One thing coming out of Buffalo training camp right now is Devin Singletary has been having a fumble problem. So, that might actually be a bonus for Zach Moss coming out of Utah. I believe he was in Utah.
Yeah, Rudy, and that's a very important thing to look at, because Devin Singletary, what happened last year in the red zone? They would take this guy out all the time.
Yeah,
put Frank Gore in, or have Allen do a quarterback sneak as he normally did. Devin Singletary needs to hold on football, and he's not a super great receiver out of the backfield. So Devin Singletary really needs to pick things up if he really wants to become a focal point, as good as we thought last season coming in, Rudy. We thought that they were a year behind, right? We thought maybe next year they'll make the playoffs. They made the playoffs last year. This might be the team that misses the playoffs if Allen and that running game doesn't continue to be successful.
That's a bold statement. And, another bold statement that I've been seeing going around is the Dolphins. All the improvements that they made coming in the offseason. They went and got a Tua Tagovailoa in the draft. But here's the other thing. I was really wanting to take a Justin Herbert. I felt he was more seasoned, ready to go before Tua. I've seen some of Tua's workouts so far in training camps. I'm impressed, man. I've been dogging on Tua a lot. I'm impressed. I think this kid actually may work out.
Coming on to the wagon, Rudy.
I'm not saying I'm jumping on the bandwagon, but I think he might actually pan out for them. Last season, they did finish a disappointing 5-11, but I would say disappointing. I mean it in a really nice way. They actually had a decent season compared for the team that they did have. Devontae Parker's coming back. Xavier Howard, Mike Gesicki is going to probably be one of those focal points this season if Tua gets a start. But man, did they have an off season? We're going to get into that real quick here. Byron Jones, Tua, like we said, Emmanuel Ogbah, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida from, that's another key addition I like. Kyle Van Noy. They added Eric Flowers to the line. Austin Jackson's another rookie they drafted. But yeah, everything about Miami is Tua this season. Real quick, Gio, do you expect them to improve on that 5-11 record?
Yes, Rudy, I could see them going 7-9, 8-8. I think this is a football team that at the end of last season came in and really just that first game against the Ravens, we thought, man, this team might go winless. But they kind of rallied this shit, and they had some big wins last year. They beat the Patriots, and certain parts of the year, you said, wow, I mean, this team is growing, a young football team. I see them around 7-9 already, 8-8. And they have so many additions on defense as well. They're going to improve nonetheless. Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki will be a huge focal point of that offense. And then Jordan Howard, Rudy, listen, he's no slouch. I mean, I know he's bounced around a little bit. You know, he went to the Eagles. That didn't really work out too well. But when he was with the Bears, this guy was a bona fide number one running back. They get the running game going. This is a football team I could really see win 7 to 8 games this season.
Yeah, and before we get off the AFC East, we'll get a couple of predictions here. We've got a few teams left in the AFC East here before we go to our first commercial break. Reed Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Chris Galler for 4th and 40 here. Let's go to the New York Jets, man. The Jets, they did have some high hopes going into last season. They did finish 7-9. Would I call that disappointing? I don't think I'd call it disappointing. I think I'd call it right where we expected them to fall. Of course, you're bringing Sam Darnold in. Le'Veon Bell is not the Le'Veon Bell that we once saw at Pittsburgh. Jamison Crowder is one guy I think that could have a really good season this year. But I love the additions, too, for them. Behind Sam Darnold, you go and get a Joe Flacco to back him up. You add you add a little bit of depth behind Le'Veon Bell with the Frank Gore. Their drafts was actually a really good draft, I think, with Denzel Mims and Mekhi Becton. That's really good. But I do like the Rashad Perriman addition there. Of course, Darnold's going to be the guy to watch, obviously, with the kind of stuff that they've added as far as the weapons go. Denzel Mims and him should have a decent connection this season. I think in a couple of years that connection will be good. How are you seeing the Jets here?
Rudy, I'm sorry, but I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid like you.
No, I'm not saying they're going to be good, but
I think this team.
I think they're going to honestly 5-11 is what I have them at.
I see about 4 or 5 wins. I think this team loses a lot more games than they did last year. Sam Darnold, to me, that offense, the coach who likes to stare a lot just randomly. I just don't think. Yeah, Mr. Cocaine Eyes. Le'Veon Bell, such a huge talent. They've tried to trade this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, several times. They can't protect. They did add Beckman in the draft, but Le'Veon Bell, too much of a talent. They can't seem to get him the ball. Just stack him in Joe Flacco, Joe Fluco, whatever you want to call him, Frank Gore, who's just holding on to dear life. To me, really, this team, and then they trade one of the best defensive players in the NFL, and Jamal Adams sent him there to Seattle. This is a team that is going to be bad, and I think very bad this year.
I'm going to ask you real quick before we go on to our last team in the AFC East here. Is it fair to say, okay, if you're looking up and down the Jets roster, I think their receiving core is solidified. You actually have their quarterback position that's solidified. Their running game is probably their weakest, I would say, the weakest point on offense. I mean, their offensive line is actually getting really good. Drafting Mekhi Becton from Louisville is actually a really good offensive line pick for them. But I think their running game is where they lack it. And it sucks because, like I said, Le'Veon Bell should still have a few good years left in him.
Oh, for sure, Rudy.
Is it just the fact that Adam Gase doesn't know how to use this guy?
He doesn't know how to use him, and I don't think he likes him very, very well. And hearing from Jets, he didn't want him. He didn't want Le'Veon Bell. The ownership stepped in and decided to make that trade. Bell is such a great talent, Rudy. Fantasy football-wise, he's going in those little bit later rounds. If he's there as late, maybe 5th, 6th round, pick him up. But I really do not like his situation with the Jets. They just don't have enough. They don't use Bell like Pittsburgh did. And I know Bell wanted more money, but sometimes, Rudy, the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah, and that sucks because Gang Green, you never know what you're getting with the New York Jets at all. But we kind of know what we're getting with when it comes to the New England Patriots, the last team that we're going to cover here on the AFC East preview here on 4th and 40. Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, and Chris Galler. Man, okay, so we're talking about the Patriots here. Um, all I can say, man, 12-4 last season. They lost in the wild card game. It had the feeling of last year being a disappointing season, but somehow, hey, the Patriot, they always do. The key players, obviously, you're not having no Tom Brady. Gronk retired, came back. Now he's playing for Tampa Bay with Tom. Julian Edelman, Stephon Gilmore, Chase Winovich, Devin McCourty, Sonny Michelle. Patrick Chung is missing. You've got players missing now on this Patriots team due to COVID because they don't want to compete this season. They only had a couple of additions, that were key, Cam Newton being one of them. But then they went out and got a Marquise Lee who all of a sudden says, I'm opting out too. So your really only addition is Cam Newton. I don't even have a player to watch on this. What I have is the person to watch is Coach Bill Belichick. How is he going to do this? We got about a minute before commercial here. Give me your insight on the Patriots, man.
Rudy, I think the Patriots will be okay. I'm a little worried about that receiving core, because Marquise Lee, he was coming back from injury, and maybe could be a nice little add there. But Tom Brady struggled last season with that receiving core. I think defensively, they'll be okay. Bill's a mastermind on defense. The offense, to me, they haven't been able to run the ball as consistent as they want to. Sonny Michel kind of dealing with injuries the past few years. Yeah. This Patriot team, Rudy, is on the cusp of being bad or really bad, but they're in the AFC East. They've ruled this division. They're going to have an opportunity to compete for a division title nonetheless. Yeah. Cam Newton, he has a lot on his shoulders right now, and he wants to prove a lot of people wrong. I think the Patriots will be okay, Rudy, but that receiving core, it's just, even with Julian Edelman, I can't even name their tight end, Rudy. So that's all you got to know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight for the New England Patriots. That was the AFC East preview here on 4th and 40. Rudy Campos Jr., Chris Galler, Coach Gio. We'll be right back. Rudy Campos Jr. here, reminding you to listen to the Sports Time from the Carrasco Realty Group studios here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, every Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Sweep the League, 4th and 40, and the Fantasy Countdown, contact me, Rudy Campos Jr. My email is rcamposjr@icloud.com. And welcome back to the 4th and 40 show, Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Chris Galler, the man behind the glass. We covered the AFC East in our first segment. Now it's time to go north. AFC North. We're talking Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Steelers. One of the more competitive divisions that we're going to see this season. Let's jump right into it, man. Bengals preview last season, 2-14. What did they do? They went and got out a single, Joe Exotic is what they're calling him, Joe Burrow from LSU, number Joe one Burrow. Pick. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting thing for Cincinnati. The Ohio prodigal son is coming back home. So, like I said, they finished last season 2-14. They're bringing back A.J. Green. They have Joe Mixon, Carlos Dunlap, Sean Williams, Geno Atkins. Biggest addition, obviously, is Joe Burrow. But not only is Joe Burrow the biggest addition for me, it's T. Higgins, man. You're going out and getting a solid young receiver to join Joe Burrow. I think this is going to be a really good season for the Bengals. I don't have them as, playoff contenders just yet.
Come on, Rudy.
I can't see 7 wins to 8 on this team right here. I think it's going to take that one extra year to get going. What do you got, Gio?
I think 5 wins, Rudy, probably will be where I see them this coming up. Joe Burrow's, he's starting to grow on me. I'm starting to hear some things from camp that he's been pretty good. A.J. Green, one of the best wide receivers. If he stays healthy, they're going to have a good opportunity of definitely rising at point guard this season. It's a young team, man. And that defense last year was atrocious. I mean, really bad. Nonetheless, they're going to improve. This is a Bengals team, young. I think they're going to be fun to watch, Rudy. And people are going to like to root for them just because of Joe Burrow and what he did last year and at LSU. I'm going to give them 5 wins. 5 wins, but A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, I think that will be a nice combination. And Joe Mixon running the football. This offense should really, take a big step forward because last season with Andy Dalton, that was trash. He was trash.
If we can get a healthy A.J. Green for the entire season, this offense is going to be fun. This is going to be one of those fantasy offenses that you want to pick and pull players from. So
Yeah,
I
I agree.
think that the offense is going to be fun to watch. I see the 5 wins in this. I really do. I give them about 7 wins because I think if you get a healthy AJ Green for the entire season, you're going to see a small
And
turnaround.
Tyler
Easily.
Boyd's really good as well. So you're going to
Oh
have
yeah, Tyler Boyd is definitely good. So that receiving core for Joe is honestly, I mean, if you look at it, it's kind of similar to what he had at LSU. He's got good receivers surrounding him. Plus, he's got a really good,
Yeah, and Tyler
running
Boyd had
game.
a pretty good fantasy year last year. I mean, he
Yeah,
was pretty consistent. He had some down games, but overall, if AJ Green stays healthy, I completely agree, Rudy. This is an offense going to be fun to watch.
yeah. So that was the hype of the Cincinnati Bengals. We're gonna go to the hype that I've been saying for a little while, which I bought into the hype last season with the Cleveland Browns. But this is the team that's so good on paper, and it's just paper crumbles on the field. Cleveland Browns finished last season 6-10. Major key players coming back. I mean, again, you have almost an all-star lineup in Baker Mayfield, Chubb, Beckham Jr., Landry, Miles Garrett, Aljanabi, Olivier Vernon, Denzel Ward. I mean, the biggest addition I see is obviously Austin Cooper, the tight end position that kind of solidifies them, even though they had David Njoku, who's not bad. They're rookies. They went out and got a Jedrick Willis Jr. and a Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit, I think, tore his ACL
I
recently.
think that
So
I,
he is out for the year, which is kind of a bummer because he would have been a major asset. Odell Beckham's the guy you want to watch. Can he really turn it up this season? If they do, the Browns can compete. I mean, they've got every piece in position to compete. So this is a team that is, again, let's just kind of, I'm going to slow my roll on it, obviously, but I want to make sure this team is good to go. Give me a quick preview on the Browns here because everybody
Rudy,
knows what they have.
last year I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid like you. This year, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. They're going to
Oh,
win
so we
10,
reverse it.
10, 11 wins, and I think they get to the playoffs. This is the year the Browns finally break through. I believe Baker Mayfield, some people are clowning this guy. I think he's the truth. And Austin Hooper coming in from Atlanta had a very, very great year last year with the Falcons. He comes in. He also have a new offensive coordinator, head coach. A pretty good offensive staff is coming in here. They need to just make things simple. Freddie Kitchens, first of all, should have never had that freaking job to begin with.
Yeah.
A guy who's never even called plays in his life before he actually got the job.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, the Browns are coming in. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, as you said, Rudy, so much talent. It just screams 10, 11 wins.
Yeah.
That's going to be, I think Austin Hooper takes them over the top on offense, and they have everything you want in a football team.
Yeah, speaking of everything you want, the Baltimore Ravens have everything they want in a quarterback. Last season, finishing 14-2, they lost in the divisional round, but you've got, your MVP Lamar Jackson coming back. You've got the running game too. Mark Ingram, one of the better tight ends in the game. Mark Andrews, of course, you've got the receiving core that starts with Marquise Brown. Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. They had two key additions, and both of them were through the draft, in my opinion. It was Patrick Queen and J.K. Dobbins. I think we see J.K. Dobbins get half the carries when it comes to running back, which is kind of weird because I guess we could say it's a third of the carries since you have to consider Lamar Jackson getting his carries as well. This team, I don't have a huge, big preview on them, only because it's basically the same team coming back, same strong team coming back.
Well, Rudy, they did lose Earl Thomas.
They did lose Earl
it's gonna hurt a little
Thomas,
bit.
yes. I think so, but I think that this team is pretty tested as of last season. I don't see them falling out. I'm not going to say they're going to get 14 wins again. I actually give them -1. I'm at a 13-3 record for Baltimore, which I think is going to be good enough to win this division, in my opinion.
Yeah, Rudy, I think definitely not 14 wins. I'm looking at 11, 12 wins.
Mhm.
The NFL will find a way to humble you, and they'll catch up to your offense eventually. We've seen that with Sean McVay. We've seen that with other coaches. So the Ravens will take a step back. Lamar Jackson, he needs to take a huge step in the passing game, Rudy.
Yes,
As
he
great as
does.
he
If
runs,
he does that, yeah.
He
No,
needs
he
to take
he
that big
does.
step because he's
He
been
does.
exposed in the past 2 playoff games, and
Yeah.
you have to mature. And I think he'll do that. They have pieces around there. Watch out for J.K. Dobbins. Really like to see him explode this season because I'm tired of Mark Ingram just floating around, still having a job. But let the youngster come in and let him do what I think he could do. Nonetheless, I see 11, 12 wins. I think teams figure them out a little bit, but not enough to have a losing season, of course.
Well, see, I've got them at 13 wins, which I think it's the high point for me. I see 11 and 12 wins, but what I do see is if this team stays healthy coming up, then this is my divisional winner pick right here. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
I'm talking Steeler Nation. I mean, coming into last season, 8-8. If you keep a Big Ben healthy this season, this is one of the teams that I think is potentially coming out of the AFC when it comes to the Super Bowl. I mean, James Conner, Big Ben, Juju Smith-Schuster, who needs Ben Roethlisberger as his quarterback in order to be great. But forget the offensive side. I mean, that's good in itself. You've got a defense, TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Bud Dupree, Terrell Edmonds, Joe Hayden, Devin Bush. I mean, this defense is, what is it? The steel curtain defense from the past.
Yeah.
This could be a
good.
huge defense for the Steelers. I think this is the team, if they stay healthy, this is the team that comes out of the AFC North. I easily see a 14-2 record for this team if they can stay healthy. That's my bold prediction.
Rudy.
That's my big prediction. Yes, this is one of the top teams in the AFC.
10 wins. Oh, you're gonna go 14 or a team that
I'm gonna go
8 last season
on the high end. 14.
Okay.
On the high end.
Well, I definitely think they can win this division. I could see them win 10 games. James Conner needs Ben Roethlisberger. Juju Smith-Schuster needs Ben Roethlisberger as well. Yeah. These are guys that took a step back last season simply because the Pittsburgh Steelers had about 10 quarterbacks playing last season, and even with that, they finished 8-8, which was pretty good for what some of those quarterbacks
what they went through. Yeah,
exactly what they went through last season. And this receiving core, I think it's going to be a really good one. And Juju has something to prove. He has something to prove that he can be a number one because Antonio Brown, remember when he called him out last season. He called him out several times throughout the year, and Juju just didn't have that season. He was hurt as well. But the Steelers, to me, I could see them win 10 games. I'm going to say 9 or 10. This could be a breakout team. The offensive line will be better this season. Overall, this team is going to be better. So I'll say 10 wins.
10 wins. You don't have any way of giving them or any types of ideas of giving them more than 10 wins.
No.
I mean, if you had Ben on last year's team, you can't say that they're a 12-win team last season.
Like, how much does Ben have left in the tank? I mean, last season before he went down, didn't we see him get shellacked against the New England Patriots? I mean,
well, they've got to keep him standing up. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you don't get a good, healthy Ben Roethlisberger this season,
I will say he looks slimmer. He does look a little slimmer.
Yeah, and he actually needed to lose weight is what he did in the offseason. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to add 6 wins just by adding Ben Roethlisberger, but I think what you have is a defense that is at least good for another maybe 2 wins, 3 wins from last season. Add Ben, get that extra win or 2, so that's around 13, 14 wins. I would say on the low end, you're right. I would say about 11, 12 on the low. That should be enough to get that division title.
Quick question, Rudy.
Yeah, what's up?
Is Juju the number one this year? Can he take that mantle? Unlike last season, he struggled, obviously, because of quarterback reasons. Does he take that next step? Do you see him 300 yards?
Man, I'm going to say no. Going into that. I don't think so. I think he's going to fall just a little short when it comes to that. So I don't think he'll be the number one, but I think what we'll do is see an improved Juju Smith. So that was the AFC North. This is 4th and 40. Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Chris Galler. We'll be right back. Hey, are you looking for that local flavor, that local burger flavor? Look no further than Burger Boy. Oh, the wonders that is Burger Boy. Are you a working man? Of course you're a working man. Do you like working overtime? Not all of us do, but when it comes to Burger Boy, they have both the working man special and the overtime special. For you working men out there, that's a double Burger Boy, large fries, large drink, and for those of you working overtime, add that extra meat. We're talking triple Burger Boy, large fries, large drink. Yes, Burger Boy, the wonder that is San Antonio.
Antonio.
So we just got done with the AFC North. Welcome back, Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Chris Galler, the man behind the glass. This is 4th and 40. We were, like I said, we just got off the North. We're taking our bus, train, plane, whatever, down south to the AFC South, where we're going to start with the Indianapolis Colts. One of the bigger additions in the offseason was by the Colts by adding a Phillip Rivers. Last season, they finished 7-9. This team is a lot better than their record actually shows. T.Y. Hilton, Marlon Mack, Malik Hooker, Darius Leonard, Justin Houston, some of the key guys coming back. Like we said, the additions, Phillip Rivers is the biggest addition. Also, a major addition that I really liked was through the draft, Jonathan Taylor. They also went out and got a Michael Pittman Jr., adding DeVorest Buckner as well. This team is a lot better than 7-9. Gio, can you agree with that?
Yes, I will agree, Rudy. I see this team potentially getting up to 10 wins. They have all the pieces. They have a really, really good offensive line. Defensively, you saw some points during the season where it wasn't as good as they should be. I think the talent they have. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I think this team 10 wins. It's all going to depend on really Phillip Rivers. Is he going to take another dip? Last season, we saw a little bit of a decline from Phillip. Really, in certain points, certain spots of games, he just looked old, Rudy. He looked like an old man.
Yeah.
Is Phillip Rivers going to decline that much to where this team just goes 7-9 again? I don't think so. I think Phillip has a little bit left in those legs. 10 wins is definitely where I see. And watch out for Jonathan Taylor. He could. I love Marlon Mack.
Backfield.
That backfield is going to be deadly. Marlon Mack has, people talk about him as being not the greatest, but you look at his stats for the past few years, he's played well. So Phillip Rivers is the key man. If he gets worse, if he becomes old man Riverwalk, it's going to be
nice shout out to San Antonio. I like that. Yeah, that backfield, man. I love Marlon Mack. You also got to remember you have a Naheem Hines as well. Adding a Jonathan Taylor.
Don't mention Naheem Hines. I'm tired of hearing this guy's name.
Well, but not only that, one of these guys has to step up, and I'm hoping it's a Jonathan Taylor. I mean, explosive back out of Wisconsin. Probably can we easily say he's been the top running back for the past 2 or 3 years in college football?
He has, Rudy, but just remember, some of these Wisconsin running backs, they're legit hit or miss.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember Ron Dane being one of the more recent ones. I
think Monte Ball was.
Monte Ball.
Yeah, he was a disaster. I drafted him in the first round one year.
They're not Georgia running back, so I'll give you credit on that. But we'll see how Jonathan Taylor does go. Again, I think this team is a lot better than 7-9 record. I've got them pushing around the 10 to 11 win range, kind of where you've got them. Phillip Rivers is the difference maker. I think T.Y. Hilton will be benefit because now that Rivers isn't in L.A. anymore, that's going to obviously affect Keenan Allen. Doesn't affect T.Y. Hilton. He's got Rivers with him now. So I expect a pretty good season for T.Y. Hilton, both obviously regular football, but also in fantasy. So speaking of a fantasy, let's go moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that has fantasy value, but just can't really you seem to do squat on the field. Finishing 6-10 last season, you've got good players. You've got Leonard Fournette. You've got DJ Chark. Gardner Minshew, the porn star of the NFL, is actually back. Miles Jack, Jared Wilson, Josh Allen. They had some additions. They added a Tyler Eifert in there, who from Cincinnati glory days wasn't very glorious there. I mean, always injured. Rookie class was actually one of the better rookie classes, adding C.J. Henderson, Clavon Chasen, and I'm going to hire this Laviska Shenault. I'm sorry. They did have a really good draft class. I think Fournette is the guy that we need to watch down in Jacksonville. Again, my preview for the Jacksonville Jaguars is pretty slim. Gio, what kind of short preview you got for Jacksonville?
Pretty slim. This team, I just don't love them. They have a bunch of
they're going to decline in wins. I mean, let's be honest. I think they decline. They go to maybe 4-12.
I think Leonard Fournette has a better year, but how much is he going to improve with this team? They just don't do enough offensively. Very vanilla. Gardner Minshew, though, he can run around. He can make plays. He can extend plays. this is going to be an offense that will improve. I just don't think improve enough. Defensively, we've seen the past few years they've started to decline as well.
Mm-hmm.
DJ Shark, they just have a bunch of, as I like to say, just clogs in the system. No one really stands out. Tyler Eifert, as you said, Rudy, that guy's always hurt, and he's talented. I mean, he's really talented. How much does he have left in the tank? This is a football team. Rudy, I could see 3 or 4 wins, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a decline on the win totals for the Jaguars. If they do happen to get to 6-7 wins, it's going to case we're going to see some Gardner magic coming through. But again, I think its team is just too.
That's the only thing that's going to be coming through.
You know what? This is what it is. And before we go on to the Texans here, this is what it is. It's a good dish, a good food dish right in front of you that just doesn't have seasoning, so it ruins the entire meal. This team is like that. It's got good pieces. It's got good players. It looks like it should be a team that can compete, but it's just not going to have the spice on it. So that's kind of what I look at for Jacksonville. Moving on to Jacksonville, hey, man, the Houston Texans, had probably the biggest trade in the offseason when they lost DeAndre Hopkins. And people are saying, hey, DeAndre Hopkins lost. What are you doing? Well, I was a small advocate, in a big picture saying that DeAndre Hopkins deal was actually a good deal for Deshaun Watson. They finished last season at 10-6. They lost in the divisional game. Of course, they're bringing back Deshaun Watson. They have J.J. Watt, who's probably on the back end of his career, obviously. Will Fuller, Whitley Merciless, Zach Cunningham. The additions they had, David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb. Now, I've been pretty much of an advocate of this. When you get rid of that big receiver, it helps a quarterback, especially like Deshaun Watson. He can spread the ball a little bit more now. Doesn't have to concentrate solely on DeAndre Hopkins and getting him the ball. You've seen that work everywhere. Russell Wilson is a good example. He's never really had. Now, you can say Tyler Lockett is a number one guy. He's number one in Seattle, but he's not number one as far as the NFL goes.
I agree.
That is a Russell Wilson effect that you're going to see. I'm not saying Deshaun Watson will be Russell Wilson, and I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but again, Brady's another guy. He spreads the ball around. It makes the quarterback better when you don't have that big target that you're trying to get the ball to the entire time. I see Deshaun doing wonderful things this year. The career of David Johnson is going to be revived into Houston, I believe. This offense is going to actually look a little bit better than what it has been. I still see the 10 wins as the high point, though. I can see them going lower than that.
Rudy, you talked all this stuff about the glory and all this stuff, and you only give him 10 wins.
I'm not confident in other words, all these pieces that are coming in are key, but I'm not confident until I actually see it right now.
Rudy,
I think Deshaun gets you to 10, at least.
Listen, first of all, the head coach is an idiot for trading Hopkins because he had a personal issue, but we won't get into that. This football team, 10 wins is probably around what they're going to be. Deshaun Watson is a great talent, but Rudy, is Brandon Cooks going to be healthy? Is David Johnson going to stay healthy? Is Will Fuller going to stay healthy? You have 3 guys, Rudy, that have dealt with injury problems the past several years. Will Fuller, I feel like I hear about him every year. Brandon Cooks, trust me, the Rams don't miss him. We got a young man named Van Jefferson who's lining up right now in camp. They're probably going to win 10 games, Rudy, but Deshaun Watson might be running for his life again. That offensive line needs to be better. I mean, he's been hit a lot the past few seasons. David Johnson's a key point, though. If they can get the running game going and have that balance, I think it's just very important to have in a football team. If he can get going, I like their chances, Rudy. But they have a bunch of injured guys all the time.
Yeah. Now, before we go on to the Tennessee Titans here, I did want to pose this question to you because David Johnson is a guy to watch for this team. Let's be real. This is the best running back they've had since Arian Foster. I mean, we know how Arian turned the Houston Texans offense into a juggernaut. It's not only their fantasy, but they were scoring. So at that time, they didn't have a Deshaun Watson in the quarterback position. So with David Johnson, if he gives them exactly what he's capable of, I 100% agree with you. This team is way better.
If he can be his rookie year, where he had 25 yards from scrimmage, that will be a huge help. But, you know,
It's kind of a wait and see type thing,
it's
man.
kind of a wait and see type of thing. He's been hurt, so sometimes they kind of mess with your psyche.
Exactly. And one team that we again, the preview is going to be pretty small on the Tennessee Titans because why? I mean, they didn't really add too much. The guys that they did add are, they're key guys, but they're not guys that are going to actually be juggernauts in the guys they added in the offseason, but they can't help. Last season, Tennessee finished 9-7, lost in the conference game. Obviously, Derrick Henry had a massive year. I expect the same from him. Ryan Tannehill should take that step up. You've also got guys like Jonnu Smith, who I expect to take the next step into being one of the better tight ends in the league. Great receiving core with A.J. Brown. You got a solid defense. They added a Vic Beasley Jr. from Atlanta. I don't expect a whole lot from
Rudy.
Vic. Yeah, I don't expect a whole lot from him. Going out and drafting Isaiah Wilson and Darrington Evans. This, again, a small preview real quick, Gio. We got about 45 seconds here on this preview. How do you expect the Titans to go? I think they still are one of the better teams in the AFC. I don't see them going into the Super Bowl or anything.
Listen, I love the Isaiah Wilson. Shout out to Georgia. This team, listen, if they run the football, Rudy, they're going to make games ugly. Hand that ball off to Derrick Henry. You got some really good catchers in A.J. Brown. And Jonnu Smith in fantasy, I think, could have a huge season. But they got the pieces around them, Rudy. Just continue to run the football. Hand that rock to the big fella. They do that. And Ryan Tannehill, to me, man, Rudy, his last 8 games, he played really, really well, man. Just really good to get that team to the playoffs. And that should speak a lot about Marcus Mariota. But nonetheless, I think the Titans will be a really good football team. Just run the football. Just do what you do well. Don't get too cute.
Exactly. So, I mean, again, Titans, they should do well this year. 4th and 40, Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Chris Gallagher, the man behind the mask, will be right back. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Sweep the League, 4th and 40, and the Fantasy Countdown, contact me, Rudy Campos Jr. My email is rcamposjr@icloud.com. Welcome back to 4th and 40. Rudy Campos Jr., Coach Gio, Rudy. Chris Gallagher, the man behind the glass. We're covering our last AFC division. It's the AFC West, where it is the home of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But first, before we get into Chiefs talk, thank you everybody for joining us here on 4th and 40. This is the first show, the inaugural show, basically. So we are covering all of the AFC teams. Chargers, man, go Chargers, go! In the wonderful words of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Obviously, this team last season was 5-11. They have Joey Bosa. They have 2 guys on defense that is really good. They also have other guys that are stout as well. When you go in with the Melvin Ingram, Derwin James, and a Casey Hayward Jr., it's the offense that's going to struggle right here. I mean, yes, they went out and got a Justin Herbert in the draft, which I really believe is the better quarterback in the draft this season. I know Joe Burrow is hot. He's a really good pick. But I think Justin Herbert was that polished quarterback that everybody wanted. They also added a Kenneth Murray. A huge addition that I like in the draft was Joshua Kelly, because their running game, you're looking at Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson. Joshua Kelly can actually take over these guys, and take over that starting position. They're going to struggle this season. 5 wins last season with a Phillip Rivers, without a Phillip Rivers. I almost see the same thing. 5 wins. I can see them as low as 4. I don't think it's going to be a juggernaut offense. Keenan Allen's going to really see a drop off this season, I believe.
What? No,
I believe so, man. This is our first argument then. Gio, what do you got for the Chargers?
Listen, Keenan Allen, I think, and fantasy-wise, I think he's going to have a really good year. I think he still got plenty left in the tank. Hunter Henry, can you please stay healthy? Can you please stay healthy? No, this guy seems to be hurt every year. I'm going to be a little more optimistic, Rudy. I'm going to go with maybe 7 or 8 wins. Austin Eckler, that running game, the running passing game, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to be able to get to 8 wins. I think their defense is that good with Joey Bosa back there.
Yeah, I can't deny on the defense side. You're right. That's a good point. Side,
the offense, I can definitely see where, Tyrod Taylor, he's just a game manager. He's not that, but I just think their offensive personnel, just too much talent. Mike Williams is dealing with an injury, so that might be a little bit of a damper. But overall, I just think they have too much offensive weapons to be a team that wins 5 games. I really think. Now, they did that last season, but Phillip Rivers was just old man Riverwalk, like I said. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a little bit of an upgrade. He can move the pocket. And also, I mean, if you put the young kid in, who knows what will happen. I'm a little bit more bullish. I'll say 8 wins, 7 to 8 wins with Chargers.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the 5. I need to see what's on the field first. Like I said, Keenan Allen definitely is a fantasy juggernaut on the wide receiver position, but I feel he might have a drop off for this season, but we'll see, and then, after the Chargers, we're going to do a really quick preview of the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? Because they're Super Bowl champs. They didn't do anything but get better, and that was through the draft. I mean,
you're right, Rudy.
This team is 12-4 last season. They, obviously are Super Bowl champs. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. That offense, those 3 guys alone are going to win you a bunch of games. Their defense is actually nothing to sleep on with a Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, Damian Wilson, Hitchens, Alex Okafor. What do? They go into the draft thinking, okay, we need another explosive person. Why? Because our defense is actually good. There's no reason in spending a first-round pick on, first-round talent to get defense. They go out and get a Clyde Edwards-Helaire from, LSU. It's like, wow, this team just reloaded itself. And not only that, okay, so they lose to LaShawn McCoy. Williams is actually going to be sitting out, I believe, for the season because of COVID. They needed that running back, that solidified running back, that person to come in and just take over that position. CEH is definitely going to do that. I'm going to abbreviate his initials because, man, it's too long of a name to say. But a small addition that I do like is that DeAndre Washington addition there because, I really liked what he did in, Oakland as well. Oh, now it's Las Vegas, but Oakland when he was there. Those 2 additions I think are key. I don't have a whole lot for the Kansas City Chiefs because it's the same team coming back. This is my Super Bowl pick for this season. So, again, I think it's back-to-back Super Bowls for Patrick Mahomes.
There's not much to really say about this football team. If Patrick Mahomes stays healthy, this is going to be another team that potentially will probably get to the Super Bowl. The Patriots, I don't think they're going to be even close, and I think that's probably a huge threat. Pat Mahomes is the real deal. He's a real deal Holyfield, right? So he stays healthy. Watch out for Mecole Hardman from Georgia. I think he'll take a next step in the right direction. And CEH, whatever you want to call him, I'm on the hype train, Rudy, especially on fantasy football. I want as much shares of this kid as much as possible. But the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. They returned most of their starters from last year's Super Bowl team. And that defense with Steve Spagnuolo running the show, I think they're going to be a pretty good team, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, we're CEH. We'll get into that here on the Fantasy Countdown show, which will be airing as well today. You can look for that because we'll be previewing running backs and wide receivers. We're going to move on to the Denver Broncos, one of the trickier teams in this division here. Last season, it wasn't a bad season, 7-9. They're going to give Drew Lock the reins to this team. So knowing that, they went out and got him Jerry Jeudy in the draft, a really good addition. He already has the Cortland Sutton, Phillip Lindsay as well. That running game is going to be kind of up in the air because I know they added a Melvin Gordon as well. But the problem is that Melvin Gordon? I mean, that's the whole key right there. Defense, you always start with Von Miller. You got Bradley Chubb. This team is kind of in the middle, man. I look at it as, they went 7-9. I can see 8-8, 9-7 right here. I don't expect them to get any massive amount of wins, but is Drew Lock good enough to just completely take over the reins and finally solve that quarterback riddle that the Broncos have had?
Yeah, Rudy, we don't know what to expect. We just have to really wait and see. But they have the receivers. Cortland Sutton, he finished as a really good fantasy football player at the end of last season. Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, Rudy, I think that could be a good tandem. Yeah, we know that we don't know what to maybe expect from Melvin Gordon, but you have him and Phillip Lindsay in that backfield running the football. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, right? A really emerging tight end. This is an offense. I think people are sleeping on the Broncos, Rudy. I think they're sleeping because they don't know enough about the quarterback, but that's okay. I think the Broncos are going to surprise some people, and I wouldn't be surprised if they upset the Chiefs one of these games. So
I see that, and I'm going to just throw this out there as far as the Broncos go. I think Jerry Judy. I mean, this is a bold statement, but I think Jerry Judy finishes in the top 3 on Rookie of the Year voting.
Do you
I
think
really
he's the
think.
best wide receiver in this class at the end of the season?
No, no.
Who's
Uh-uh.
it going to be?
Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson will be the best wide receiver this season for this class. I mean,
All
you've
right.
got. I know everybody's on CD Lamb's bandwagon because of Dak Prescott, but again, you've got Zeke Elliott, you've got Amari Cooper there, so I think CD gets his touches, but it's not going to be like a Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen's going to be so focused on, and Jefferson is so big and he's so quick that I think that he's going to be that difference maker for Minnesota, and he's going to have the better season when it comes to a fantasy, or not a fantasy, but a wide receiver. But Henry Ruggs is
Okay.
another one as well.
Yeah. Freddie,
I
this
think,
receiving
yeah.
class period is really good. There's a guy, and I know you're going to say Homer with the Rams named Van Jefferson. I've been
No, I'm
talking
not. I've
about him
seen
on
him.
Twitter. His route running ability. His dad played in the NFL. A lot of people are saying Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp's rookie year was really good. Van
Yeah.
Jefferson, I get it. He's not a household name. Just watch out for Van. I think he's going to have some spots this year where you say, man, he's a pretty good player.
I totally agree. So after seeing some of the Rams, training camp video, I was kind of low on Jared Goff when it comes to stuff, but I'm actually kind of getting high, and
Uh-oh.
a little bit on the Goff bandwagon here. But we did mention the Henry Ruggs, so we're gonna move on to the
The Raiders.
newly crowned Las Vegas Raiders, finishing last season 7-9. This team is. It's my closet sexy team this year. I have to say that because you've got a great running game already, Josh Jacobs. Derek Carr, I think, takes a step forward because when you've got a receiving core of a Darren Waller at tight end, who's one of the better tight ends in this league, he really is. Then you go and you go out and get a Henry Ruggs the third, but you also have a Tyrell Williams who's injured right now, who's hoping he stays healthy. But there's one player there where I think you can actually get a lot out of him because you couldn't do it in the past, and that's Nelson Aguilar. Because Aguilar, I think, is going to be that slot guy that it's not going to be so hard for him to make a play on. I think Gruden will use him and get his talents, showcased a little bit more. So you've got Ruggs on the outside. He's going to be your deep threat. Tyra Williams is your midfield. He can be a deep threat as well. But I think where we see Aguilar come in, if Gruden actually uses him right, think of a Wes Welker type player, someone who's just going to be in the slot, get you that, dink and duck 8-9 yards, and who can make a big play because Aguilar can make a big play. What are you seeing on the Raiders? We got about a minute left here. What are you seeing on the Raiders here?
The same thing as you, Rudy. This is a team you just don't know. It all depends on Derek Carr and kind of that next step that he takes, and I think he will. Josh Jacobs, tremendous talent. I was on that train last year, by the way, for fantasy football, and he did not disappoint. Darren Waller, Terrell Williams did deal with some injuries, but I think this is a football team that has the talent defensively. They got certain pieces, as you said. Nelson Aguilar, I know he had a tough time with the Eagles, but he should be okay here in Oakland. This is an offense, Rudy. They got talent, man. The talent's there, and they got a really, really good offensive line people are not talking about. So, I mean, this team is here. I'm going to say 8 wins, but they can win 10.
I can see 10 wins easily on this. I mean, and like I said, that's my sexy closet pick of the Raiders. And you say, about 8 wins, I 10 win. I'm right about 10, maybe 11 for the Raiders on the high end.
Yeah.
Ideally 8-8, 9-7 is right where I want to be with
because
the Raiders.
Rudy,
So.
Carr tends to make that big mistake in crucial games like he did last season. If he can erase those, make plays, I could definitely see them as a 3-win improvement.
Before we go, I do want to say especially on the Raiders, this is where Carr makes that extra. That's why I said he takes a step forward this season because he has Marcus Mariota behind him. And Gruden has loved Mariota.
Do you see a situation, Rudy, that Marcus Mariota becomes the Ryan Tannehill last season where Carr struggles early
Yes.
on and
Yes.
Mariota just comes in and just kind of rides the show?
Easily. Just because Gruden has that option now, and he's not going to be afraid to use it. So
Oh no,
I
it's
can
just Gruden would not be
definitely,
afraid. You will not be afraid.
yeah, I can definitely see that happening. And you know what? We're not afraid here at 4th and 40. When it's 4th and 40, we always go for it. No reason to punt on anything. This was the AFC preview. Next week we're gonna have our NFC preview,
Let's
where
go Rams, baby.
we
Let's
get into
go.
some of the teams that we feel are gonna be, really good. I think there's a lot more excitement in the NFC this season. So we're going to definitely preview that next week for next week's show. This was the AFC preview here on 4th and 40. Rudy Campos Jr., like I said, Coach Gio, Chris Galler, the man behind the mask, getting it done here on 4th and 40. Be sure to check out the Fantasy Countdown show where we'll be previewing the running backs and wide receivers positions going into everyone's draft. Thank you guys for showing up. We will see y'all next week. Hey guys, this is Rudy Campos Jr. Just reminding you guys here for 4th and 40, you can go and follow us on Twitter. It's at Sweep the League. For myself, if you want to follow Coach Gio, it's at Coach Gio. Just add an extra O at the end. And if you want to get down with the man behind the glass, Chris Galler, it's at official Mr. 300. Find all of us on Twitter and as well as on our website, www.sweeptheleague.com.